What's going on, everybody? So I was recording a video and I didn't look at the footage while I was recording it, unfortunately, because I was kind of in the zone. And so I didn't know until it was too late that the microphone that I had bought to replace the ones that I've been using forever does not seem to work. I tried it with my GoPro. I even tried it originally to film this intro, and it doesn't work. $25 microphone, no use at all. Anyway, I'll be voicing over this video this time, and hopefully I'll have some better stuff. So don't mind the lips not matching up, because I probably won't be saying the same thing I was before. But regardless, I hope you enjoy today's video. What's going on, everybody? Now, if you look right here, what you're going to see is a Ford 7.5 rear end. Now, while it's not the strongest rear end, it will handle up to about 350 horsepower, which is plenty strong for our mighty 190 horsepower produced by our V6 Mustang. So that's what we're putting in today. Now, if we go inside of the Mustang, what we're going to look at is the interior, which, as you can see, is not bad at all. It's actually pretty decently taken care of, but of course, like every car I seem to buy, has 1,000 little trees inside of it. So what do? I don't know what the popularity is between those little trees and cars that I buy, but that's neither here nor there. If you look at the dash, you'll notice that this car has roughly 131,400 miles, which is not terrible considering it's a 2003. So shouldn't be that bad of a candidate for a new rear end. Stereo in there actually came with it when I bought the car, and so when I end up selling it, it will go with, of course, because I really don't want to deal with it. If you look into the window, you'll see my little brother, who was unwittingly my companion to help me lift the rear end. But if I would have had audio for this, what you would have heard right here was a banging rear end with the pieces smashing apart, and it sounded absolutely horrible. So that's what we were looking into fixing right now. Now, just in case you happen to not understand exactly how the rear end is supposed to work, I'll show you this one that I refinished off camera. Now, as you can see, as I grab a hold of this side of the axle and I turn it, what should be happening where it's not getting power from the center is the other axle is turning the opposite direction. Now, that's because this is an open diff. As you can see, it is turning the opposite direction. Whereas if I were to grab the center and I were to turn it, considering it's up in the air, both sides are receiving an equal amount of force with no friction, so they should be spinning in the same direction. Now, if this were to happen to be one with a locking differential or something, they would spin the same direction both sides. Now, if you look at the old differential, notice I spin this tire, the other side does not move at all because there is no interconnectivity between the two half shafts, and therefore it's definitely no good. Now, a couple quick safety things to mention before we continue on with showing how to replace your rear axle. Now, first thing you'll notice is there are a pair of wheel chocks in front where they'll be out of the way, but they'll help keep the car from sliding forward. Second of all, you'll notice that the piece that I'm using in order to remove the wheels is in fact the impact socket, not a chroming. Do not use the chrome bits on the impact socket. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do is remove your brake caliper. Now, it should be 4 bolts, this particular one, because it's got an inner and an outer caliper. Now, it's pretty easy to take off, and so we'll take these off and move on to the next step. Now, the next step that we're going to want to do is remove the drive shaft from the rear differential. Now, if you look at these bolts, you'll notice they are a 12 millimeter, but they're also a 12 point. Now, that's very specific, so you want to make sure that you have the 12 point instead of the 6 point, or you're going to have a difficult time removing them. So make sure to make your quick trip to the auto parts store beforehand, otherwise you'll be covered in grease and pissed off and don't have the right part. The next thing you want to do is remove the bolts on these upper arms that are holding on. Now they're pretty simple to do, it's just your regular bolt that slides in with a nut on the back. So just get a wrench on the back and then hit it with your impact. It should come off pretty easily. Now at this point your axle should be held in by 2 bolts per side. Now what you're going to see is the first bolt is on this shock right here. The second bolt you're going to see is on this lower arm on the outside of the axle. Now both these bolts are pretty easy to remove, so I'm not going to make you sit through taking a bolt off. And so now we should be able to get this axle out. But keep in mind, where this is a direct swap, we are going to be reusing the calipers that are already on the car instead of the ones that are on the new axle. Now that we have the old axle pulled, we can go ahead and take a moment and look between the two. Now, the first axle, we know that it should basically be destroyed inside, but we don't exactly know what it's going to look like. So we're going to hold on to this axle and we're going to take it apart in another video. So make sure you're subscribed so that you can check that out. But what's important right now is this new axle. So if we go ahead and look at this axle, which I refreshed on, which I refreshed off camera, you'll notice here this tag, which will tell you everything you need to know about this axle. So we go ahead and flip this over and look at this tag. You'll notice first off it says 2 space 7.3. Now the space indicates that it is an open differential. It is a 2.73 to 1 gear ratio. Now that's important. That tells you the gear ratios on it, which tells you that it's more fuel efficient ratio. Now the 75, that means it's 7.5 inches. That's this rear differential is a 7.5 inch diff. So now that we know a bit about this differential, we should be able to install it confidently knowing what it is that we're putting in there. I can go further into depth on how to read these if you guys need. There's not much more to it, I guess, but let me know if you guys want to know more about how to read the tags on differentials in the comments below, and maybe I'll make a video on it. But let's go ahead and get this installed. Now, one important thing to note is the only hiccup I had installing this is where this axle came out of a 97 and mine's an 03. It had a smaller bolt. So unfortunately the bolt won't actually fit into the way it's supposed to. Like right there fits in, but according to the axle it doesn't fit. So we've got to take this step bit right here and drill it out so that we can actually make it work properly. And as we get this bolt right back in where it needs to go after drilling, the rest of it should go in basically in the opposite way that it came out. It's a fairly simple job, and make sure that you're using proper torque specs when putting everything back together. Alright everybody, I am in the Mustang. As you can tell, it is driving under its own power, and the axle seems to be working quite well. A couple small things. One, where the axle was a 2.73 to 1 versus the 3.27 I think it was to 1 ratio, the speedometer's off by roughly 20%, which means that unfortunately when you're doing 65 according to the speedo, you're actually doing about 80. Now, as much as I would love to show you guys how to change out the speedo gears and stuff, this particular one is actually electric. So that means that in order to change it, we'd have to take it to a tuner, which can be done, but it's $125 at the dealership or $100 at your local tuner. Well, depending on what your tuner charges. That's what mine quoted me. And other than that, this thing, it's 20% less powerful because of the gears and all that, which is fine. But because it's a V6, it really doesn't matter. But it does actually get better gas mileage than it did factory, which is nice. If you happen to want that in your Mustang or whatever, then it's not a bad thing to think about. But most importantly, I know it's nothing special. It's a V6 that I found for a song because it was going to go to the scrapyard because it was screwed up. And I found parts in a scrapyard, which, while it's not a great car as far as like power and stuff goes, it's one less car that's stuck in a scrapyard. And so I'm proud of that at the very least. Anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. If this taught you how to stop your car from going into the scrapyard, give me a thumbs up, like my videos, share with your friends, subscribe to my channel. If you guys want to hear anything more about this Mustang before I end up selling it off and getting another project, let me know. Stay tuned for the next few videos, and I'll see you guys next time.